Nobody could have predicted what was really going on inside that house. From the outside, the Weston family looked like the perfect suburban unit. Smiling parents, 2 kids, laughter echoing in the hallways. But if anyone had looked closer, just a little closer, they might have seen the cracks forming. Early on, the problem wasn't the screaming baby or the sleepless nights. It wasn't the paperwork or the adjustment period. It was the look, the way the new son, Joshua, stared without blinking, the way he listened without reacting. It wasn't normal, not even close. And yet, no one outside that home had any clue. What started as a good deed, adopting a child who needed a family, was about to unravel into one of the most disturbing stories their town had ever seen. Emily Weston remembered the exact moment things began to turn. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was subtle, like a drop-in, temperature that no one else notices. She had just picked up Joshua from the adoption center. The social worker called him quiet but observant. Emily thought that meant shy. She brought him home, introduced him to her husband Daniel and their 2-year-old daughter Lily. Lily had been excited all week. She wore her pink dress, the one she called her big sister outfit. But the moment she saw Joshua, something changed. Her smile dropped. She took a step back. Then she screamed. Not a tantrum, not hunger, pure terror. The kind that makes your skin crawl as a parent. Emily froze. Joshua didn't flinch. He just stood there staring at Lily like he had expected this exact reaction. Daniel tried to laugh it off. "She's tired," he said. "It's a new face." He picked Lily up, trying to soothe her while Emily knelt beside Joshua. "It's okay," she said softly, brushing his hair back. He didn't respond, didn't smile, didn't even blink. She chalked it up to nerves. Maybe he was overwhelmed. Maybe they both were. Still, as night fell and they tucked the children in, something in Emily's chest wouldn't settle. Lily refused to sleep in her room. She clung to Emily's arm all night, whimpering. In her sleep. Every time Emily tried to move, Lily's grip tightened. And every time she looked across the hall, Joshua's door was wide open, but he never came out. The days that followed felt off in ways Emily couldn't explain. Joshua was polite, obedient, always watching. He never threw tantrums. He didn't ask for toys or sweets. He just sat, observed, mimicked. Lily, on the other hand, changed completely. She stopped speaking as much. She hid behind furniture when Joshua entered the room. She wouldn't eat if he was at the table. Once she wet herself because she didn't want to go down the hallway alone. Emily started to journal everything, thinking maybe she was overreacting. Maybe this was part of the adjustment period. But the entries began to take a tone even she couldn't ignore. He doesn't act like a child. His drawings looked like blueprints. Lily said he talks to her at night, but I never hear a sound. What made it worse was that Joshua was perfect on paper. The school called him a quiet genius. His handwriting was immaculate. He solved puzzles meant for teenagers. The neighbors adored him. Even Daniel, who had been hesitant at first, started bonding with him. "He just needs time," Daniel said. "He's smart, that's all." But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just intelligence. It was calculation. Joshua didn't behave like a scared child adapting to a new environment. He behaved like someone who knew exactly what he was doing, someone waiting for something to happen, someone playing a role. Late one night, Emily couldn't sleep. She walked down the hallway to check on the kids. Lily was in their bed again, her tiny hand curled into a fist, face pale even in sleep. Emily kissed her forehead and turned to peek into Joshua's room. He wasn't there. The sheets were untouched. The window was closed. Heart racing, she checked the kitchen, the backyard, the living room. Nothing. Then, from the baby monitor in Lily's room, she heard a soft sound, a creak, a whisper. She sprinted back in. Joshua was sitting at the foot of the bed, motionless, eyes fixed on Lily. "She talks in her sleep," he said. "Did you know that?" Emily pulled him out of the room without a word. Daniel didn't believe her. "He's curious," he said. "You're seeing things because you're exhausted." Emily tried to explain, but it came out jumbled, half fear, half confusion. She started recording things, timestamps of when Joshua was out of bed, Lily's drawings, her own thoughts. The more she documented, the clearer the picture became. Lily was scared for a reason, and Joshua wasn't acting like a 6-year-old boy. He never had. Then came the moment that made Emily truly question everything. She was sorting through boxes of old toys when she found one of Joshua's notebooks. Hidden inside were pages filled with diagrams, room layouts, schedules, coded entries. One line stood out: mission progress, phase 1 complete, family acceptance in progress, maintain cover. Her stomach dropped. She reread it over and over, trying to understand. Was this a game, a story, a prank, or was it something far more dangerous? She confronted Joshua that night. He didn't deny anything. He didn't even look surprised. Some people don't get to choose their jobs, he said quietly. They just become what they have to be. Emily backed away. Her hands were shaking. She knew then, whatever this boy was, he wasn't who they thought. And if she didn't act soon, something terrible would happen. She looked at Lily, sleeping soundly now, and realized this wasn't just about a strange adoption. It was a matter of survival. From that night on, everything shifted. The tension in the house became suffocating. Joshua watched her differently now, less like a child needing a mother and more like a predator studying prey. Emily stopped sleeping. She started planning. She knew something was coming, and she needed to be ready. Because the truth wasn't just disturbing, it was life-threatening. And no one, not even her husband, seemed to understand how real the danger had become. Everything she once believed in, love, family, trust, was now uncertain. All because of a boy who wasn't a boy, a son who didn't belong, and a daughter who had seen the truth before anyone else. Emily Weston had always believed in second chances. Maybe it was because of her own rough childhood, growing up in foster care, bouncing between homes, always wondering if someone would finally see her as more than a problem to manage. So when she and Daniel decided to adopt, it wasn't just about growing their family. It was about redemption, giving a child what she never had. They'd already had Lily, their biological daughter, who filled their home with messy laughter and temper tantrums. But something in Emily's heart told her there was room for one more, someone who needed them as much as they needed him. When the agency first mentioned Joshua, it almost seemed too good to be true. A quiet boy, very intelligent, the woman on the phone had said. Few behavioral issues, just needs a stable home. Emily remembered gripping the edge of her kitchen counter, a weird mix of excitement and hesitation running through her. They'd been through 3 failed matches already. Each time, the child had been placed with another family at the last second. Joshua was available now, ready. And when they saw his photo, dark eyes, serious face, that odd maturity behind his expression, Emily felt something stir in her chest. Maybe this was fate. The first meeting wasn't what they expected. Joshua didn't run up to them. He didn't hug or smile. He just stood beside the social worker, watching them, analyzing. Emily knelt down and offered him a small stuffed bear. He took it without a word. No expression, but he held it tightly, and that was enough for her. He just needs time, she told Daniel that night. Daniel wasn't convinced. He's different, he said. I don't know. There's something about him. But Emily pushed. She always did when she believed in something or someone. The adoption process was surprisingly fast. The agency assured them that Joshua had gone through every necessary screening. No red flags, no behavioral warnings. Just a boy who had fallen through the cracks like so many others. They brought him home the following weekend. Emily decorated a room for him, with blues and greys, a rocket ship lamp, a shelf of books. She let Lily help pick out some of the toys. He's going to be your brother, she told her daughter. Lily clapped her hands, bouncing with excitement. At 2.5, she didn't fully understand what adoption meant. She just knew someone, knew was coming to play. But the moment Joshua walked in the door, all of that joy drained from her face. It was supposed to be a celebration. Emily had balloons, cupcakes, even a little welcome sign. Joshua stood at the threshold of his new home, scanning the living room like he was assessing a layout, not entering a family. When Lily saw him, she immediately stopped clapping. Her small fingers gripped Emily's sweater. Then, without warning, she let out a piercing scream, the kind that made your blood run cold. Emily froze. Daniel looked stunned. Joshua didn't move. He just kept looking at Lily with that same blank expression. No confusion, no hurt, just interest. Like he expected this. They tried to recover. Daniel scooped up Lily and whispered to her, trying to calm her down. Emily forced a smile, ushering Joshua into the house, showing him his room. "We're so happy you're here," she said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. Joshua nodded once. "Do I sleep alone?" he asked. His voice was low, calm, too calm. "Yes, of course," Emily said. "This room is yours." He placed the stuffed bear on the bed, sat down, and looked out the window. That was it. No excitement, no curiosity, just silence. That night, dinner was quiet. Lily refused to sit next to Joshua. She kept glancing at him from across the table, her tiny body trembling every time he moved. Joshua ate neatly, methodically. He didn't speak unless spoken to. Emily asked him what food he liked. "All kind," he said, no further elaboration. Daniel shot her a look. "He'll come around," she mouthed. But inside, a knot was forming in her gut. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Adoption was supposed to be hard, yes, but not like this. Not like something was wrong. Bedtime was worse. Lily screamed when they tried to put her in her room. No sleep with boy," she cried, pointing toward Joshua's room. Emily, exhausted and embarrassed, gave in and let her sleep in their bed. She kissed her goodnight and promised everything would be okay. But when she stepped into the hallway, she saw Joshua, standing at the end of it, watching. "Is she scared of me?" he asked. Emily hesitated. "She's just not used to having a brother," she lied. "She'll come around." Joshua nodded, but didn't go to bed. He just stood there until Daniel called him. Even then, he walked slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Emily started questioning her decision that night, not in big ways, just little thoughts, doubts she couldn't push away. She replayed every step of the process in her head, the paperwork, the home visits, the interviews. Everything had checked out, and yet there were things that didn't sit right. Why had no one ever adopted him before? Why did the social worker flinch when she asked about his background? And why did her daughter, who had never feared anything, suddenly seem like a different child? Days passed. Emily tried to stay positive. She took Joshua to the park. He sat on the bench and watched the other kids but didn't join them. She tried reading to him. He corrected her pronunciation on several words far beyond his age level. She set up play dates. He avoided eye contact with the other children. The only time he seemed engaged was when Daniel turned on the news. Joshua would sit in front of the TV, absorbing every word, every image, like he was studying. Not like a child fascinated by cartoons or colors, but like someone analyzing information. And yet, there were no outbursts, no tantrums, no disobedience. He cleaned his room without being asked, brushed his teeth on time, folded his clothes. It should have been comforting, but to Emily, it was unnerving. Children weren't supposed to be this controlled, this detached. She started watching him the way one watches a stranger on the subway, carefully, cautiously, looking for signs of something beneath the surface. By the end of the week, Emily had stopped sleeping. She would lie awake at night, listening to the creaks of the house, wondering if Joshua was awake too. She'd check the hallway, always finding his door open, his bed empty, but he was never out of place, always somehow back before sunrise, sheets unruffled, face peaceful. Still, every instinct in her screamed that something was off, deeply, dangerously off. But every time she voiced her fears, Daniel shut them down. "You wanted this," he said. "He's not perfect, but no kid is." Emily stopped arguing, stopped sharing. She began writing everything down, cataloging every interaction, every detail, because something told her that one day she'd need proof. Proof that she wasn't crazy, that she hadn't imagined it, that from the very beginning something was wrong, and that it all started the day she brought him home. Before Joshua came into their lives, the Western home was a place of simplicity and small joys. It wasn't extravagant or meticulously curated. It was warm, lived in, filled with the kind of noise and chaos only a toddler can bring. Every day was a routine, but it was their routine, and it worked. Emily would wake early, start the coffee, prepare Lily's breakfast, and hum softly to herself while Daniel scrolled through the news. There were tantrums and toys underfoot, but the air was always light. Every room carried the scent of familiarity. Pancakes, crayons, baby shampoo. It wasn't perfect, but it was predictable, safe. Lily had always been expressive, full of life. She laughed from her belly, stomped when she was mad, and danced without music. Every emotion lived right on the surface. Emily loved that about her. It meant she never had to guess how Lily was feeling. They had a bond that was both playful and intense. Emily could calm her daughter with a look, distract her with a silly song, and reassure her with a single touch. At 2.5, Lily already had her own personality, a wild mix of curious questions, soft cuddles, and bursts of mischief that always ended in giggles. She'd talk to her stuffed animals like they were real, carry a blanket around like it held magic, and sometimes whisper to herself while drawing. Typical kid things, sweet things. Daniel adored Lily too, though he expressed it differently. He was the builder of forts, the chaser of giggles, the one who let her jump off the couch into his arms without warning. On weekends, he'd take her to the park, push her on the swings until she squealed, then carry her home when she refused to walk. They had inside jokes already, goofy catchphrases and silly faces. They were a unit, the three of them, figuring life out one day at a time. And while adoption had always been a goal for Emily, she never felt something was missing. She just believed there was more love to give. The house itself echoed their life. Photographs lined the walls. Lily's first birthday, their wedding, a blurry picture. Of Daniel covered in spaghetti, toys were scattered in nearly every room. Emily had tried organizing them once, buying labeled bins and pastel storage cubes. It lasted a week. Eventually, she surrendered to the chaos. That was part of having a child, losing a little control in exchange for joy. The nursery was still intact, filled with pastel animals and picture books. Emily sometimes stood at the door, imagining another child there. She had no idea the future occupant would bring something far different than joy. Small details, in hindsight, began to stand out, but only after everything changed. Before Joshua, Lily would hum a tune while brushing her teeth, a little off-key song she made up herself. She'd spin in circles in the hallway laughing until she fell over in a heap. Every night, she insisted on the same storybook, The Moon Sleeps Too. She'd kiss the last page before falling asleep. After Joshua came, she stopped asking for the book. She stopped spinning. The song disappeared. At first, Emily thought it was a coincidence, a phase. But now, looking back, she saw the pattern forming. The before was so bright. The after dimmed everything. There was one day in particular that Emily couldn't stop replaying. A Tuesday morning. Lily was playing in the living room, stacking blocks and talking to her bear, Benny. Emily was in the kitchen, pouring coffee, when she heard Lily say, "I'm not scared of the dark anymore." Emily peeked around the corner. "What made you brave?" she asked. Lily shrugged. "Because there's nothing there, just me and Benny." It was such a simple moment. But now, months later, it haunted her. Because after Joshua came, Lily wouldn't even go near that same corner. She cried if Benny was left behind. She asked Emily to sleep with the lights on, something she'd never done before. The innocence of their home was untouched back then. The only arguments were over bedtime and cookie counts. Emily and Daniel shared whispered conversations after Lily was asleep, curled on the couch with tired smiles. They made plans, vacations, schools, things parents dream about. They had no idea a stranger was about to walk into their lives and take all of that away, not with violence, not with threats, but with a presence so wrong it shifted the air itself. And they welcomed him, invited him in with open arms, blind to what they were actually letting in. Emily kept a journal in those days. Nothing serious, just quick notes, little updates. She'd jot things like, "Lily learned to say triangle today," or "Daniel forgot the groceries again." After Joshua arrived, the entries changed. Fewer exclamation marks, shorter lines, more questions. She didn't notice it at the time, but reading them now was like watching the color fade from her own handwriting. The contrast was glaring and heartbreaking. What's most disturbing to Emily now is how easily something pure can be altered, how quickly a happy home can become a stage for something sinister. It didn't take violence, it didn't even take chaos. Just one presence, one person pretending to be something they weren't. And the worst part? They had no idea. They thought they were doing good, saving a child, starting fresh. But the life they knew, the version of themselves they were in, that before phase, was gone the moment Joshua walked through the door. Even Daniel, logical and skeptical, eventually admitted it. "We were different back then," he whispered one night, long after the truth had come out. "I miss who we were." Emily couldn't reply, because she did too. She missed the way Lily danced, the way Daniel smiled without worry. She missed herself before the fear, before the second guessing, before the things she saw in her daughter's eyes that no child should carry. The contrast wasn't subtle. It was everything. A family full of color turned grayscale in a matter of weeks. And now, no matter how hard they tried, the past felt unreachable, like a dream that slips further away the more you chase it. Emily kept one photo on the fridge, a moment frozen in time. Daniel tossing Lily into the air while she squealed, Emily mid-laugh, sunlight pouring in. Joshua hadn't arrived yet. That moment was real, untouched, before the shift, before the loss, and now it only served as a painful reminder of what used to be. It began with a whisper, a barely audible sound that Emily could have easily dismissed as the creaking of old floorboards or the sigh of a settling house. But the difference was in Lily's reaction. Children don't fake that kind of fear, not the kind that paralyzes them mid-step or makes them wet themselves without warning. The first time Emily noticed something undeniably wrong, it was during a quiet Tuesday afternoon. She was folding laundry in the hallway when she heard Lily whimpering softly in her room. Not crying, not yelling, whimpering like she was hiding. Emily rushed in and found her curled under the bed, clutching her stuffed bunny to her chest, eyes wide. "What happened?" she asked, kneeling. Lily just pointed at the closet and whispered, "He watches me there." Emily opened the closet. Nothing. Clothes, toys, some books. No one there. She tried to reassure her daughter, told her it was just a bad dream. But Lily shook her head. "He watches when you're not here." Emily's stomach turned. "Who?" she asked, even though she already knew the answer. Lily looked down and mumbled, "Joshua." The name came out like a curse. That night, Emily brought Lily into her bed again. She told Daniel what had happened. He sighed. "Kids make stuff up," he said, "especially when they're jealous or confused." Emily wanted to believe that. She really did. But it felt like the start of something, and that feeling wouldn't let go. It didn't stop there. Over the next few days, more small things began to appear, so subtle that they would be easy to ignore if they hadn't come in a growing pattern. Emily noticed Joshua never blinked during conversations. His eyes would lock onto hers or Daniel's or Lily's, and he would just stare. No nodding, no shifting, just intense focus. It made even simple exchanges uncomfortable. She also noticed his drawings. At first, they looked like random scribbles, but when she examined them closely, she realized they were sketches, layouts of rooms, with furniture labeled, even electrical outlets marked. Who taught a 6-year-old to do that? Then there was the cat. Their neighbor's cat, Milo, used to lounge in their backyard every afternoon. Emily hadn't seen it in days. One evening, she found Lily staring out the window. "Milo's gone," she said quietly. "He doesn't come here since Joshua came." Emily asked why. Lily shrugged. "He doesn't like being watched." The words chilled her more than she cared to admit. It was irrational, of course. But still, when she opened the window later that night and looked into the backyard, she felt it too, that something was off in the air itself, like the house had stopped being a home and turned into something else. Something watched. The most disturbing moment happened on a Saturday morning. Emily was doing dishes when she heard Lily screaming from the living room. She dropped everything and ran in. Joshua was standing near the TV, remote in hand. Lily was in the corner, sobbing, pointing at him. "He changed the channel to the bad show," she cried. Emily looked at the screen. It was a documentary on military operations. Not cartoons, not even news. Grainy footage of soldiers in foreign countries, coded language, strategy briefings. Emily turned it off immediately and knelt next to Joshua. "Why were you watching that?" she asked. He looked up at her, expressionless. "I like to learn," he said. His tone was calm, flat. That wasn't what disturbed her. What did was the fact that he'd entered a passcode to access that channel. She hadn't taught him that code. Neither had Daniel. When she asked Joshua how he knew it, he replied, "I just remembered it." Emily didn't argue. She didn't press. She just nodded and walked away. But her hands were shaking, and for the first time since he arrived, she realized she was scared of him. Genuinely scared. She told Daniel again. Told him about the code, the stare, the way Lily flinched any time Joshua got close. Daniel rubbed his face and muttered something about needing space. "You're turning this into something it's not," he said, but he didn't meet her eyes. That night, Emily installed a baby monitor in Lily's room, hidden behind a stuffed animal on the shelf. She needed to see for herself, needed to know if the whispers, the fears, the changes were real or just paranoia. Around 2:17 a.m., the monitor picked up movement. Emily watched from her phone. Lily stirred in her sleep. Then the door creaked open, slowly. Joshua stepped inside, barefoot, silent. He walked to the edge of Lily's bed and stood there, just watching. For 5 full minutes, he didn't move, didn't touch her, just stared. Then he turned around and left. Emily sat frozen, her breath caught in her chest. The video saved automatically. She played it again and again. It wasn't a misunderstanding, it was real. The next morning, she didn't say anything to Joshua. She couldn't. She just watched him from across the kitchen table as he buttered his toast with surgical precision, as if nothing had happened. She studied his face, trying to see something, anything, that explained what he was doing, but there was nothing, just the blank mask of a child who wasn't really a child. And in that moment, she stopped seeing him as her son. She saw him for what he was, a question she didn't have the answer to. Lily grew quieter. She started drawing pictures of dark figures standing over beds. She stopped singing. She barely spoke unless spoken to. The pediatrician said it was adjustment disorder. Emily wanted to scream. There was no diagnosis for what was happening in her home, no manual to explain the nightmare she was walking through. The signs were there. She just didn't know how to make anyone believe them, and the most terrifying part of all was realizing she might be the only one who saw it, the only one willing to admit the truth. It wasn't just about adoption, it wasn't about adjustment, it was about something much deeper, something that wore the mask of a child but moved like something else, something calculated, patient, waiting, and it had already started making itself comfortable in their lives. Emily Weston was never the kind of person to panic easily. She had always believed in logic, in research, in taking calm, calculated steps before reacting. But nothing in her life had prepared her for this. She knew what she saw on that monitor, in her daughter's eyes, in the countless little moments that built into something undeniable. Joshua wasn't like other children. He wasn't growing into their home. He was watching it, learning it, shaping himself to fit inside it like a puzzle piece from a different box. And worse, he was pulling Lily deeper into something that made her shrink by the day. So Emily did the only thing that made sense to her. She asked for help. Her first call was to the adoption agency. She waited until Daniel left for work and Lily was napping, locking herself in the laundry room so Joshua wouldn't overhear. She kept her voice low but firm. "I have concerns. I have," she told the woman on the other end. "About behavior, about safety." The woman's tone shifted instantly, from polite to professional distance. "We've reviewed Joshua's file thoroughly, Mrs. Weston. There's no documented history of trauma or instability. Is there a specific incident?" Emily hesitated. "How do you explain something like this? That your child stands in doorways at night and stares without blinking, that he bypasses parental controls like a hacker and never shows emotion unless prompted. He watches my daughter sleep," she said quietly. "He frightens her." The woman paused. Then, I said, "I'll note your concern, but remember, adopted children often trigger unease in biological siblings at first. It's normal." It wasn't normal, and Emily knew it. But she thanked the woman and hung up, staring at the wall as the silence settled around her like concrete. She wasn't being heard, and something about that call felt more like a warning than support. Her second attempt was with Lily's pediatrician, Dr. Ramos. She scheduled an emergency visit, hoping the doctor would notice something, anything out of the ordinary. Lily clung to Emily during the appointment, burying her face into her mother's chest whenever Joshua's name came up. "Nightmares," Emily explained. "Regression, severe fear." Dr. Ramos nodded and said it might be transitional anxiety. When Emily brought up the drawings and the incident with the baby monitor, his demeanor changed slightly, like he was listening but not registering. "You've been under a lot of stress lately, right? 2 young kids, work, sleep deprivation." Emily cut him off. "This isn't me being tired. Something's wrong." Still, all Dr. Ramos did was refer her to a child psychologist. The earliest available appointment was 3 weeks away. Emily tried talking to Daniel again that night, showing him the video from the monitor. "He didn't do anything," Daniel said, watching it. "He just stood there. That's not dangerous. Creepy, sure, but dangerous?" Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. "He entered our daughter's room at 2 in the morning," she snapped. "Why was he awake? Why did he go in there?" Daniel shook his head. "You're seeing what you want to see. I'm not saying it's not weird, Em, but you're making it bigger than it is. You need rest." That phrase, "you need rest," landed like an insult, like a dismissal. Emily didn't sleep that night. The walls were closing in. She tried reaching out to a local support group for adoptive parents online. She typed out a long, honest post, no names, just details, and asked if anyone had experienced something similar. Within an hour, the post was flagged and removed. The platform said it violated privacy and safety guidelines. She tried reposting it in a different forum. It vanished too. After the third attempt, her account was suspended. No warning, no explanation. She began to wonder if she was going crazy. Maybe this really was just stress. Maybe she was overanalyzing. But every time she looked at Lily, who now refused to be in the same room as Joshua without screaming, she knew it wasn't in her head. Something real was happening, something no one wanted to talk about. One evening, Emily tried one last thing. She walked into Joshua's room without knocking. He was sitting at his desk, drawing. He didn't flinch when she entered. "What are you working on?" she asked, forcing her voice to sound casual. "Math," he said without turning around. She walked over and looked. It wasn't math, it was a grid, drawn in pen, with initials and dates and check marks. Emily felt a chill go up her spine. "What is this?" she asked. He looked up and said, "Progress." She backed out of the room slowly and closed the door. Then she went to the garage, locked the door behind her, and cried for 10 minutes straight. Over the next few days, Joshua became more outwardly polite, more cooperative, even affectionate toward Daniel. He began helping set the table, folding laundry, offering to read to Lily, who shrieked and ran away every time he approached. Daniel praised his turnaround. Emily saw something else, a performance, the calm before something worse. And yet every time she tried to speak up, she was made to feel irrational, alone, disconnected from reality. She began to write things down obsessively, timestamps, conversations, facial expressions. She started to doubt even her own senses. That's when the shift in Daniel became more noticeable. He stopped engaging in the conversation. When Emily brought up Joshua, he'd go silent. When she pushed, he became distant, almost cold. It wasn't subtle. It was like he was stepping back emotionally, removing himself from the weight of it. One night, she found him asleep on the couch. When she woke him and asked why he hadn't come to bed, he said, "I didn't want to talk." That was it. No anger, just detachment. And Emily felt the first cracks form, not in her sanity, but in her marriage. The isolation became unbearable. No one believed her. No one wanted to help. And the more she tried to get closer to the truth, the more it seemed like some unseen force was pushing back. Whether it was coincidence, error, or something more sinister, she couldn't tell, but she knew this. Joshua was not what he seemed, and the world around her was determined to make her forget it. Emily didn't want to believe she was losing her mind, but the signs were stacking up like bricks, sealing her into a truth no one else wanted to see. Joshua's presence wasn't just unsettling, it was wrong on a level she couldn't articulate. And Lily, her bright, brave daughter, was fading by the day. The house felt colder, the air thicker. Every night she double-checked the locks. Every morning she woke with the same thought, "I have to find something. I have to prove I'm not crazy." She couldn't rely on Daniel. He'd become distant, quick to defend Joshua and dismiss anything she brought up. Emily was on her own, and she was done waiting for help. It started with a drawing. Lily had stopped speaking much, but she still drew every day. Emily saved every piece, hoping to track her daughter's emotional state. That morning, Lily handed her a new picture. It was their family: Emily, Daniel, Lily, and Joshua. But something was off. Everyone else had smiles. Joshua didn't. Instead, his mouth was jagged, full of sharp black lines. His eyes were hollow. His arms were long, too long, and they reached past the frame of the page. "What's this, baby?" Emily asked gently. Lily didn't answer. She just pointed at the page and said, "He's not real." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She waited until everyone was in bed and snuck into Joshua's room. She expected to find him asleep. Instead, he was sitting at his desk in the dark, writing. The only light came from a small LED flashlight in his lap. He didn't move as she entered, didn't acknowledge her. Emily stepped closer. "Joshua," she whispered. Still no response. She took a deep breath and reached for the paper in front of him. At that, he turned suddenly and placed his hand over it. "Private," he said flatly. "This is mine." Emily's heart pounded. "Okay," she said quickly, backing away. "Sorry." She left, but her hands were trembling, and she was sure of one thing: that paper had something important on it. The next day, when Joshua went outside to help Daniel rake leaves, Emily seized the chance. She returned to his room and searched. At first, it felt like invading privacy, but as she pulled open drawers and flipped through notebooks, that feeling evaporated. This wasn't a child's room. The journals weren't filled with doodles or math homework. They contained symbols, codes, strings of numbers, circled and connected by arrows. Phrases like "maintain cover" and "observe target response." Her breath caught when she found a folded sheet tucked beneath his mattress. It was a letter, addressed to someone named Agent Crowley. Her hand shook as she read the top line: "Integration complete. Stage 2 ready for activation." Emily read the letter again and again, not fully understanding, but knowing deeply that this was not fiction. This wasn't a game. She took photos of the document with her phone and slipped it back exactly as she found it. That night, she barely ate. Her brain spun in circles. Who? Hell was Agent Crowley. What kind of child writes reports about integration? She tried searching the name online but found nothing, just scattered references to government employees in obscure forums, most of which were deleted or outdated. But the term Stage 2 stuck with her. It implied planning, execution, purpose. Emily tried showing Daniel the photos. She sat him down, put her phone in his hands, and watched his face as he scrolled. He barely blinked. "Where did you find this?" he asked. She explained everything. What she saw, the letter, the symbols. She expected disbelief, maybe anger. But what she didn't expect was his silence, cold, blank. Then he handed the phone back and said, "It's just a story. Kids make stuff up." "Daniel," she whispered, "this isn't normal. Our daughter is terrified, and this is proof." He shook his head and stood. "You need to stop this. You're going to ruin him." And then he walked away. Emily didn't sleep that night. Instead, she went back to the photo. She enlarged the letter and noticed something she hadn't before, a seal in the corner, faded, barely visible. But it was there, a government seal. She sent the photo to a journalist, friend she hadn't spoken to in years. His name was Travis Bell, a conspiracy nut but a smart one. Within minutes, he replied, "Where the hell did you get this?" They talked on the phone. Emily told him everything. Travis promised to look into it. "This isn't kid stuff," he said. "This is serious. Be careful." 2 days passed. Then Travis disappeared. His phone went straight to voicemail. His email bounced back. Emily checked his Twitter, deactivated, Instagram, gone. She even searched local news. Nothing. It was like he'd vanished. Panic set in, not just for him, but for herself. What did I stumble into, she thought. What did I bring into my home? She checked the photos on her phone again. They were gone, deleted. Every image of the letter, every screenshot of Joshua's drawings, gone. Her cloud backup too, wiped clean. She felt sick. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. Someone was cleaning up. The next time she looked at Joshua, he was sitting in the kitchen eating cereal. He smiled at her for the first time since arriving. Not a warm smile, not a child's smile, a knowing smile, a controlled one. "You look tired," he said softly. Emily stared at him, unable to respond. That's when she realized he knew she knew, and that smile, that was a warning. Emily's world was collapsing in quiet, terrifying ways. No doors kicked in, no loud threats, just silence. Absences, glitches in the everyday that didn't make sense. Her phone battery draining in minutes. Her laptop freezing when she tried to open files. Lights flickering in the hallway every time Joshua passed. Maybe coincidence, maybe not. But her gut screamed one thing. I'm in danger. We all are. And she didn't know how to fix it. Yet, Emily Weston had spent the past few weeks feeling like she was screaming into a void. Every call for help, every question, every attempt to connect the dots had been met with silence, excuses, or condescension. But the moment she realized Travis Bell, the one person who had taken her seriously, had vanished, something inside her snapped. The fear that had been slowly tightening around her finally coiled into certainty. This wasn't about Joshua being different or even disturbed. This was organized. There were layers, people, patterns, systems. Joshua wasn't just a boy with a dark past. He was part of something, and now that she had tried to expose it, she felt the weight of it closing in on her family. She wasn't being paranoid. She was being watched. She started documenting everything on paper. No more phones, no more emails, pen and notebook. She wrote down every detail she remembered. From Travis's last message, the name Agent Crowley, the list of coded initials, and most of all, the phrase Stage 2. She copied Lily's drawings, described their symbolism, logged the black SUV that had now been parked outside their house for the 3rd day in a row. The same model, same tinted windows, same idle engine. Each time she stepped outside to approach it, it would slowly pull away like a taunt. She called the police. Probably someone scoping the neighborhood, they told her. Happens sometimes. Let us know if they try anything. But they didn't write a report. They didn't send a car. The shift inside the house was just as unnerving. Daniel, who had once been hesitant about adopting, had now become Joshua's closest ally. He dismissed Emily's fears, rolled his eyes at her concerns, and even suggested she see someone about her anxiety. But the Daniel she married didn't talk like that. He didn't gaslight. He didn't ignore Lily's cries. Something had changed, something fundamental. She began to suspect that Daniel wasn't just under stress, he was being influenced. Joshua had woven himself into Daniel's life so subtly, so effectively, that he'd become a trusted figure of authority in the house. Daniel listened to him, asked his opinions, praised him for maturity that Emily saw as manipulation. It was like watching a virus take hold. One night, Emily overheard a conversation between them. She had come downstairs for water around midnight and paused in the hallway when she heard voices. Joshua was speaking calmly, articulately. "You need to stay calm. If she panics, the whole structure collapses." Daniel replied, "I'm trying, but she's watching everything, writing it all down." Emily froze. Her throat dried instantly. They weren't talking like father and son. They were talking like operatives, co-conspirators. She stepped backward, careful not to make a sound, and returned upstairs in the dark. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay in bed with Lily curled beside her, listening for every footstep in the hallway. The following morning, Daniel acted like nothing had happened. He kissed Emily on the cheek and asked about breakfast. Joshua smiled politely at her, offering to help set the table. Emily couldn't look at either of them without hearing that sentence again. "If she panics, the whole structure collapses." What structure? What they building? She needed answers, and she needed them fast. She went to the local library, not her usual spot, to access the internet from an anonymous device. There she dug deeper into the adoption records, trying to track down other families from their orientation group. Most names led nowhere. And however came up, Karen Delaney. The name triggered something. She remembered the soft-spoken woman, how nervous she'd seemed during the interviews. Karen had been matched with a child 2 weeks before Joshua was placed. Now, she was dead. Emily stared at the obituary on the screen. Accidental. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Survived by no known family. The article was short, generic, the kind you skim over. But something felt wrong. The cause of death was too convenient. She tried searching for the child Karen had adopted. No record, not a name, not a photograph. It was like the placement never happened. She printed the article and slid it into her notebook. As she walked back to her car, she noticed the black SUV parked 3 rows over. Same windows, same idle engine. Her hands clenched. She turned sharply and walked the long way home, checking her reflection in every window she passed, feeling eyes on her at every turn. Back home, Lily had drawn something new. This time, it was a house, their house. But the roof was cracked open, and black wires stretched from the inside toward the edges of the page. Stick figures stood around the house, faceless. One figure stood inside. The house, drawn entirely in red, with long arms that reached into the windows of every room. "What's this, sweetheart?" Emily asked, her voice breaking. Lily didn't answer. She just pointed to the red figure and said, "He wants us to be quiet." Emily knelt down, her hands shaking. "Why, baby? What happens if we're not?" Lily shrugged. "Then they take the house away." Later that day, a man in a brown uniform rang the bell. He claimed to be a delivery driver with a package. Emily hadn't ordered anything. The man didn't look her in the eye. His badge had no company name. She refused the package. The man didn't argue. He simply left it on the step and walked away. She let it sit for hours, watching it from the window. Eventually, she double-bagged it and threw it into the dumpster behind a strip mall 10 blocks away. When she returned home, the lights in Joshua's room were already on. He was sitting at his desk, facing the wall, humming that same strange tune, low, steady, methodical. Emily stood in the hallway and whispered to herself, "This isn't a family. This is a cell." That night, she packed a hidden bag, IDs, cash, burner phone, clothes for Lily. She didn't know where she'd go or when, but she needed the option. She could feel the net tightening, the gaslighting from Daniel, the smiling obedience from Joshua, the silence from every official she reached out to. It all pointed to the same truth. This wasn't random. It wasn't isolated. Other families had gone through this. Others had disappeared, and now it was her turn, unless she moved first. By midnight, she stood in the living room alone, lights off, watching the front door, waiting, listening. The house creaked under the weight of something she couldn't name, but it was there, breathing with them, watching, growing. Emily Weston had spent the last few weeks drowning in doubt, suspicion, and fear. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for the betrayal that was about to rip the floor out from under her. The signs had been building slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Daniel's dismissiveness, his sudden affection for Joshua, the way he downplayed every red flag Emily raised. She had told herself he was just tired, confused, trying to keep the family from imploding. But deep down, she had started to wonder, what if he wasn't being manipulated? What if he was in on it? That question had haunted her through every silent dinner, every cold night, and every deflected conversation. And now, finally, she would get her answer. It happened on a Thursday night. Rain tapped against the windows in rhythmic pulses. Emily had put Lily to sleep early after the child began complaining of stomach pain, something that was happening more frequently now, likely from the stress. Joshua was in his room, or at least that's what he wanted them to believe. Emily had learned he moved silently at night, never closing his door all the way, always appearing in places he wasn't supposed to be. She didn't trust walls anymore, didn't trust cameras. Everything felt compromised. So when she saw Daniel sitting at the kitchen table, typing on his laptop with headphones in, she felt a mix of exhaustion and desperation. "We need to talk," she said, not waiting for a reply. She sat across from him. "Now." Daniel removed the headphones slowly, as if she were interrupting a movie and not a conversation about their imploding family. "What's going on now?" he asked, his tone flat. Emily pushed the printed copy of the obituary across the table. "Karen Delaney," she said. "She was in our adoption group. She's dead, and there's no trace of the child she adopted. Doesn't that strike you as odd?" Daniel didn't even look at the paper. "Accidents happen, Em. You can't keep spinning everything into some conspiracy." Emily leaned in, her voice sharp. "Then explain this." She slid the page with the encryption phrase she found under Joshua's bed. Daniel glanced at it, then back at her. "You've been going through his things again?" His voice wasn't angry. It was disappointed, like she was the one violating trust. That's when she knew, really knew, something was wrong with him. "I think you know more than you're saying," she whispered. "You've changed. You act like he's your friend, like you trust him more than you trust me." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "He's a child, Emily. You're the one acting irrational." She reached into her pocket and dropped the hidden USB drive she had been compiling. "For weeks, videos, photos, notes. Then why did you tell him I was documenting everything?" The air thickened between them. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Where did you hear that?" he asked. No denial, no confusion, just immediate damage control. Emily stared at him, heart racing. "I heard you that night. If she panics, the whole structure collapses." "What structure, Daniel?" He stood up slowly, calmly. "You're not well," he said. "You're tired. You've let this spiral too far. I think you should go see someone. I've already looked into options." She backed away from the table, her pulse hammering. "You planned this," she said. "You helped place him here." Daniel said nothing, just stared at her with an emptiness she'd never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, just cold distance. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you bring something like that into our home?" His answer came so quietly, she almost didn't hear it. It wasn't supposed to get this far. Emily's knees buckled slightly. She reached for the counter to steady herself. "You knew," she said. "You knew before we signed the papers." Daniel nodded once. They approached me at work, said it was a government placement. Confidential, part of a rehabilitation pilot. I thought it was about helping kids with high IQs who didn't fit the system. Emily was speechless, her world tilted. And when he started watching Lily? When I showed you the video? The files? The stalking? Daniel looked away. I didn't know it would be like this. I thought it was temporary. They said it was secure. Emily couldn't breathe. She stumbled backward, grabbing her phone and keys. You need help, Emily, Daniel said calmly. Let me call someone. Let's talk about this tomorrow. But she wasn't listening anymore. She ran to Lily's room, scooped her up into a blanket and whispered in her ear, We're going to the car, baby. Just us. Lily stirred, dazed but obedient. As they moved toward the stairs, Emily glanced back and saw Joshua standing at the top, completely still, watching them in silence. His eyes locked on hers, no emotion in them at all, just awareness. What are you doing? Joshua asked softly. Emily said nothing. She moved quickly, feeling her pulse in her throat. She reached the front door and swung it open, only to find Daniel already there, waiting. You can't leave, he said. It's not safe. You don't understand who you're dealing with. Emily shoved past him. Watch me, she spat. But as she reached the car, she froze. The black SUV was parked directly behind her in the driveway. No one inside moved. The engine purred softly. You can't run, Daniel said from the porch. They'll find you. She turned around and looked at him. Maybe, she said, but at least I'll try. She strapped Lily into the seat with trembling hands, then climbed behind the wheel. Daniel didn't follow. Joshua stood behind him, still watching. That was the last thing Emily saw before she sped off into the night. Her husband, who had sold their safety for silence, and the boy who had never been a boy at all, just a mask hiding something that had already taken everything from them. The road stretched ahead like a tunnel of shadows, lit only by the erratic flicker of Emily's headlights cutting through the fog. Her hands clenched the steering wheel, knuckles pale, heart thudding like a drum in her ears. Lily was in the back seat, bundled in her blanket, eyes wide but silent. She hadn't said a word since they fled the house. Emily glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights following, but the road behind remained empty, for now, but she knew it wouldn't stay that way. She had seen the SUV, seen the coordination, the silence, the systems in place to erase. People like Karen Delaney, and now they were next. Her husband had made that clear. She couldn't run, but she had to try. She didn't know where she was going, just that it had to be far. As far from Daniel, from Joshua, from that house that wasn't a home anymore, but a trap. Every few miles, she changed direction, avoided main highways, circled back to shake any possible tail. She couldn't take Lily to her mother's. They'd check there first. She couldn't go to a hotel, too easy to trace. Her only choice was the old family cabin 2 hours north, deep in the woods. It had no internet, no cameras, no address listed on any online platform, just 4 walls and silence. It was the last place on earth anyone would think to look, especially a system that operated with surgical precision. She reached the gravel path leading into the forest just past midnight. The wheels of the car crunched. The stones as they pulled up to the dark outline of the cabin. She hadn't been there in years. It smelled of dust and pine and something colder. She carried Lily inside, lit a lantern, and locked the door behind them. She shoved a chair under the doorknob and began checking the windows one by one. She didn't sleep. Not even for a second. She sat at the table with a kitchen knife in her hand, eyes fixed on the dark forest outside, listening for every sound. By morning, she allowed herself to breathe, just slightly. She made oatmeal over the old gas burner and fed Lily with trembling hands. For a moment, there was peace. The sun filtered through the trees, birds called in the distance, but Emily knew it was borrowed time. She kept checking her phone, which had no signal, the burner phone too, completely dead. Then she saw the first sign. On the windowsill outside the kitchen was a single Pine cone, placed perfectly in the center, not dropped, not blown by wind, placed. Her blood froze. Someone had been there, close enough to touch the cabin. She hadn't heard a sound. She gathered Lily again. "We're leaving," she said, voice low. Lily nodded, trusting her completely. As they stepped outside, she scanned the perimeter. No footprints, no tire tracks, just that eerie stillness again. They got into the car, and Emily turned the key. Nothing. The engine coughed, sputtered, then died. Again. Nothing. The battery had been drained or pulled. Her eyes darted to the tree line. "We're not safe here," she whispered. She turned to grab her phone and call someone, anyone, but it was gone. Not dropped, not misplaced. Taken. She had left it on the seat. Now it was gone. That's when she heard it. A soft knock, not at the door, not at the window, at the back of the cabin. A rhythmic tapping, not loud but deliberate, measured. She grabbed Lily and ran inside, locking the door behind them again. She grabbed the knife and held it tight, breath shallow. The knock came again, then silence. For minutes, hours, time stopped. Then a voice. Emily, calm, flat, Joshua's voice. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Her heart dropped. He was outside, alone, or maybe not. "I just want to talk," he said. "I know you're scared, but there's no need to be. You're part of something important now." Emily didn't answer, didn't move. She pressed Lily's face into her shoulder and stepped away from the door. Suddenly a crash from the side window. Emily screamed, grabbing Lily tighter as glass shattered inward. A figure lunged halfway through the frame, tall, gloved, not Joshua, someone else. Emily stabbed blindly, connecting with something solid. The figure screamed and pulled back. She grabbed Lily's hand and ran, bolting out the front door and into the woods barefoot, adrenaline erasing the pain. She didn't look back, couldn't. Every rustle felt like breath on her neck. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs felt like cement, until she found the old hunter's shed a mile down the path. They hid inside, crouched in the dark. Lily sobbed quietly, her face buried in Emily's chest. Outside, footsteps crunched leaves. One set, then another, then silence. "Emily," Joshua called again. Closer now. "You can't hide forever." She bit her lip so hard it bled. Then she remembered the flare gun, the one her father used to keep mounted above the fireplace. If it was still there, if it worked. She left Lily in the shed, told her to stay quiet, and crept back toward the cabin, praying she wasn't too late. The flare gun was there, loaded, ready. She took it, turned, and saw a figure in the doorway. Joshua, standing still, eyes dead, holding something in his hand. Her missing phone. "You were never supposed to leave," he said. Emily didn't hesitate. She fired. The flare lit the room in violent red. Joshua screamed as it struck the wall beside him, shattering the silence. She grabbed a chair and shoved it at him, buying seconds, then ran back to Lily, grabbed her, ran. They kept running, through trees, mud, roots. Emily didn't stop until headlights appeared in the distance, a ranger's truck. She waved, screamed. The man stepped out, confused. "Ma'am, what the—" "We need help," she cried. "He's coming!" Behind her, the forest was quiet, but she knew the system hadn't let go. Not yet, not fully, but for now, she had escaped. Emily Weston had learned that survival wasn't always loud. It didn't come with sirens or heroic rescues or a room full of applause. Sometimes survival meant waking up and realizing your world had been shattered into fragments you'd never fully reassemble, and then choosing to keep breathing anyway. It had been 4 days since the escape from the cabin. 4 days in a state-run safe house somewhere in rural Virginia. The windows were double glazed, the doors locked from both sides, and no electronic devices were allowed. There was no television, no internet, no clocks. Time crawled. Lily stayed. Lily, close to her, never more than a few feet away, her trust unwavering even when everything else had collapsed. Emily spent most of those first days giving interviews, Not to the press, but to a rotating cast of investigators, analysts, and psychological experts who all claimed to support the case. Some wore suits, others wore badges, but they all asked the same thing. When did you first notice something was wrong? The question had become almost insulting. It was never just one thing, it was everything. From the moment Joshua walked through their door, she had felt it, an invisible tension, a wrongness in the air that nobody wanted to acknowledge. It wasn't about a broken system or trauma or bad luck. It was something darker, deeper, deliberate. By day 5, the government finally confirmed what Emily already knew. Joshua R. Bunn wasn't a child. He wasn't a misplaced foster case or a victim of identity confusion. He was 28 years old, former intelligence asset, highly trained in psychological manipulation, embedded into civilian environments as part of a black-budget rehabilitation program gone rogue. His real background was mostly redacted, even to the agents. Interviewing Emily, but they admitted one thing: she had been selected, or rather Daniel had, and once Daniel agreed, everything else was put into motion, documents forged, approval expedited, oversight removed. The question that haunted her now wasn't how this happened, but why no one stopped it. When she asked about Daniel, they told her only this: he's missing. She didn't ask for more. She didn't care if he was dead, in custody, or relocated under another identity. He had chosen to betray them, chosen to be part of it. Whether by pressure, payment, or belief, it didn't matter. He had watched their daughter suffer, had watched his wife break piece by piece, and done nothing but smile and ask her if she was overreacting. The man she had married was gone, and whatever had taken his place had forfeited her love forever. Lily never asked about him. That told Emily everything she needed to know. Eventually, the agents stopped coming. The questions faded. The urgency dulled. She was given a new name, new ID, and a choice: witness protection or freedom. Emily chose freedom, but not because she trusted them. It was because she needed to reclaim something: her voice, her autonomy. Her story. They placed her in a modest home in a small Midwestern town far from Virginia under a different identity. She enrolled Lily in a local preschool. She got a job cleaning offices at night. She said little, kept her circle tight, but she wasn't hiding, not anymore. She was watching, just like they had watched her, and this time she would be ready. The real closure came when she mailed the package, a thick manila envelope with a printed copy of every document she had saved, her handwritten journals, scans of Lily's drawings, timelines, and notes from the hospital. She sent it not to the police, not to the government, but to a small independent journalist network she had quietly vetted. No national headlines, no flashy coverage, just truth seekers with nothing to lose. And when they released the story, disguised only slightly, names changed for legal protection, it spread like wildfire. Not because it was sensational, but because it was real. People recognized the feeling of being dismissed, of not being believed, of watching something terrifying unfold in front of you while everyone else looked away. Some readers called it fiction, others believed every word. A few claimed it mirrored things they'd seen but never spoken about. For Emily, it didn't matter how many people believed. What mattered was that it was out there. The silence had been broken. The system didn't get to erase her like it had Karen Delaney, like it had Travis, like it had so many others. And that meant something. That meant she meant something. One night, months later, Emily and Lily sat in the living room of their new home, a small, safe place, one window, one door, and no secrets. Lily was coloring again, humming a soft tune under her breath. Emily sat beside her, watching. The girl's hands moved calmly over the page. The red figure was gone now. In its place was a drawing of a treehouse, two girls holding hands, and a yellow sun. Emily smiled, tears in her eyes, but she didn't cry. Not anymore. She was too tired to cry, too determined to live. Lily looked up and asked, "Mommy, will we always be safe here?" Emily paused. Then softly she answered, "We'll always be ready." That was the truth she could promise. Not safety, not peace, but readiness and strength. The kind forged in fire and betrayal, and the sound of boots outside a cabin door in the middle of a night. And as she turned out the lights that evening, she looked toward the darkened hallway and whispered to herself, not as a mother, not as a victim, but as a survivor. Sometimes evil doesn't storm in with guns. Sometimes it shows up smiling and calls you family. Hey, this is Erlen, and you've just watched one of the most intense and chilling stories we've ever shared here on Emotional Journey. If this story moved you, shocked you, or made you think twice about what family really means, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and leave a comment below telling us what part hit you the hardest. And please, share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. You never know who might be living something similar.